May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Please be seated. Today is a day of contrast in the church. Peaks and valleys of joy and horror, celebration and grief, activity and paralysis, and community and isolation. We begin with the Liturgy of the Palms from that high point up on the Mount of Olives, across the Kidron Valley from Jerusalem, from the temple, where Jesus directs his disciples to organize a ragtag but very enthusiastic parade. They shout hosannas and wave palms and leafy branches all the way down to the Garden of Gethsemane, through the Kidron Valley and back up Mount Moriah to the walled city of Jerusalem. And then we end with the Passion narrative that we just read. Jesus has been crucified on Golgotha, a hill in the granite quarry on top of Mount Moriah, across the Kidron Valley, directly opposite Bethany where they started. The Book of Common Prayer calls this the Sunday of the Passion, Palm Sunday, holding the celebratory enthusiasm of the Liturgy of the Palms in tension with the deep horror of the Passion narrative. We read the Passion narrative to set the stage for Holy Week, our liturgical journey through the final days of Jesus' life and the wondrous mystery of the resurrection. And while we stand now with Jesus' acquaintances at a distance, watching these things, as Luke's Passion narrative ends, we really need to return to the beginning part of the story. We need to go back to the parade route to find out what our role is as these next days unfold. Back up to Bethany on the Mount of Olives to help us understand what comes next. Luke's Gospel's Liturgy of the Palms reading starts in Jericho, way down in the Jordan Valley. After telling a parable to the crowd, Luke's Gospel tells us, Jesus went on ahead. Jesus went on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. See, this is where things get interesting. While Jesus has been out front throughout his ministry, eating with sinners and crossing boundaries of custom, culture, gender, race, ethnicity, religion, he reverses all that when he gets near Bethany and Bethany. It's time for Jesus' followers to learn to lead, and Jesus sends two of the disciples out on ahead. Go into the village ahead of you, Jesus says in Luke's Gospel. And as you enter it, you will find tied there a colt that has never been ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, why are you untying it, just say this: the Lord needs it. So those who were sent departed and found it as he had told them. Now come on, this must have been terrifying. As preacher Marianne McKibben Dana writes, here are two disciples sent into a town where they are not known, with no reason to think that they won't be arrested as donkey thieves. Were these disciples expert in parade organization, supply chain management, or even donkey training? Did they have any experience at all in the unprecedented conflict of believing and belonging that was unfolding as they walked that path for the very first time? Clearly no. And yet it all unfolded just as Jesus told them it would. They had been followers until that moment. They had been walking behind Jesus constantly, questioning things that were unfamiliar to them in their lived experience. Is it really okay to heal on the Sabbath day? Wait, I thought that the rule was we couldn't eat with tax collectors and sinners. It's not appropriate for a woman to touch even the hem of your garden, besides which she's hemorrhaging and unclean. All Jesus is Preacher Tom Long writes, that is surely one of the reasons why we were given this rather odd account of the disciples being sent to fetch a colt for Jesus. Strange, isn't it, how in the midst of this great and suspenseful drama of Jesus' entry into Jerusalem, Luke devotes part of the narrative to fussing about this rather peripheral matter of Jesus' transportation. But of course, this is not a peripheral detail. Our very lives are formed with interwoven essential details, real, in the moment, on the ground choices of how to live, work, and care for our families and our communities. The good news that we've been given is how to live them out together in community, loving God with all our heart, all our mind, and all our strength, and loving our neighbors as ourselves. See, we see this in the disciples' small obedience in organizing the Palm Sunday parade that is performed under the umbrella of Jesus' great obedience. When they go ahead into the next village to get the colt, they do as they're told. And as they do, the ragged and the tattered ribbons, the stray details of their lives are woven into the great story of redemption. Yes, the Palm Sunday parade ends on Golgotha, as we read in the Passion narrative today. With all of us looking on, frozen in horror. And yet, Jesus has shown us the way to journey on to Easter. It's made up of small obediences performed under the umbrella of Jesus' great obedience. We've been talking about halos during Lent, our very best intentions for each other and for the community. During this time of self-examination and reflection, we've written our dreams for our community on ribbons of every kind, every width, every color, as different in texture and appearance as all of us. After Palm Sunday, we'll gather up those ribbons and we'll wash them and iron them as necessary and weave them into an altar cloth to use at Easter. Some of you have asked me, how will we get all of those different widths and lengths and textures and colors of ribbon woven together into a single cloth? I don't know. I can't tell you how. I just have faith that we will. And with all of our diversity, we're all woven into the fabric, just like we are, into the fabric of our community. It's not important that the multicolored altar cloth of our dreams for the community is uniform. What matters for the ribbons and for our whole community is that we're woven together. It's all about unity, not unanimity, as we say in the global Anglican community. And really, do any of us know how to do any of this? Build and nurture Emmanuel as the community center that Natalie Baird Brown dreamed of? Fix stained glass leaded windows? Repair leaks in the roof? Write grants? No, not any more than I know how to weave this altar cloth. But I have faith that we can, and that we will, together. Jesus has told us to go into the next village